Welcome to It's Chat Time, everyone. Today we have the amazing Raya, and we're going to be talking about relationships. What a topic, am I right? So before we dive right in, Raya, why don't you introduce yourself and what are you drinking today?
Hi guys, I'm Ryah, and today I'm drinking water because it's really good for you. But yes, I'm not good with the introduction, but I guess I'm here to talk about relationships with Amy. I knew her from
Yeah,
high school. There you go.
yeah. We went to high school together. Go Selma
Yeah.
High. Go Bears. So first off, how has your experience been with relationships, specifically romantic relationships?
Specifically, what?
Romantic relationships.
Romantic relationships. um, so far they have been full of growth and also epiphanies, and a lot of roller coaster like emotions.
Mhm. And how would you describe it in 3 words? If you only had 3 words to choose.
Okay, one would be growth for sure. Um, Two would be pain, and three would be um, understanding.
Mm,
Understanding. Mhm.
I like those 3 words because I feel like that's the perfect combination of any, not even just romantic relationships, but any type of relationship because
Mhm.
you outgrow people, people change, and sometimes a lot of people have told me like some people are here for a reason, some people are here for a season, and that kind of goes with like any type of relationship that you have. And so going into a little bit more into relationships, especially in our digital age, do you think it's harder to maintain a relationship with so much digital shit around us? Because I was reading, while researching this a little bit, I was reading this study that found like 50% of Americans believe that their partner is almost always distracted by either their phone, tablet, whatever, especially when they're trying to have a conversation. So, what are your thoughts about that? And did you ever experience that as well?
I've been on both ends. I've been the partner that was distracted, and I've
Mm-hmm.
also been the partner who sat on the other side while the significant other was distracted. And so, yes, I do believe that, with social media, it has distracted a little bit of our attention away from the person that we're with in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's nothing against social media, but there's more than just distraction too. Comes with a lot of jealousy these days, right? Somebody sees a
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
and it means something more than that.
Right,
Tweet,
right.
Twitter, they'll post something and then all of a sudden they're kind of attaching themselves to that
Mm-hmm.
sentence,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it's about them. So yeah, in a way, it's definitely detrimental to relationships
Mm-hmm.
when we don't use it right. So.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks, when you're sitting with someone and you're talking to them and they're distracted and you can see
Mm-hmm.
it, and I've also
Yep.
done that too. And I wasn't aware of it until they brought it up. So sometimes we're
Right,
just really
right.
not aware of it even happening because we're just so used to being on our phones.
Right, right. And definitely like in that moment when you're the other person, like so you're seeing them, you're trying to have a conversation, they're just like, mm-hmm, yeah, and you're like,
Yeah.
bro, what the fuck? Like, do you not see that your multitasking is not working? And it's just so upsetting, especially for a few times, not just like romantic relationships, but with like friendships too. I've had to have those conversations like, hey, if I'm trying to talk to you, I need you to put your phone away. Like, I
Yeah.
need all ears on me because I feel like that kind of fosters better conversation as well. But then again, like, it is really hard. Like, sometimes you have an urgent text to attain to or whatever. But how do you think people in relationships should really navigate that, like to mitigate, going on their phones while their partner is trying to have a conversation with them?
I think that has a lot to do with, actually wanting to spend some quality time. Well, one, the first thing being recognizing that that is an issue, if it were. And I think that we all have to remember, we all have different love languages, but I think we do have the common love language of quality time. But we just all
Mm-hmm.
look at it differently.
Right.
And I think when two people communicate that, hey, we're spending time together? Do you think maybe we don't look at our phone?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people think that saying that out loud just defeats the whole purpose. But I mean, we're different. We all think differently. So someone could really not realize it or want to make the effort or see the effort that needs to be made unless somebody
Mm-hmm.
says it out loud. So
Mm-hmm.
I think just
Mm-hmm.
agreeing, having a mutual understanding of, hey, if we're together and we're spending quality time, like maybe we
Mm-hmm.
should just leave our phone in the purse or in the car,
Mm-hmm.
because it does become a big distraction, especially when you can hear it vibrate or the Snapchat
Right.
sound.
Right.
All of a sudden, you're like looking, even though you don't want to touch the phone, your
Yeah.
partner
Yeah.
notices it. Yeah. So I think that just having an open communication, just saying, hey, let's quality time is quality time. And yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with friends. I feel like I'm that friend that for a restaurant when, life was normal and we could sit down in a restaurant. I'm always like, okay, let's all put the phone in the middle, and
Mm-hmm.
whoever like grabs it first has to buy the round or I don't know, take a shot or
Oh,
something.
that's creative. I like
So
that.
yeah, and it always works out so much better when everyone's
Mm-hmm.
phone's in the middle because we're interacting with each other.
Right.
So it goes
Right.
for more than just romantic relationships. It's friendships, your
Mm-hmm.
family, really anything that deserves your undivided attention, right?
I definitely 100% agree. And speaking of what you talked about, like putting in the effort, how have you dealt with, or has it happened in both friendships and romantic relationships, when that partner, that friend isn't really pulling their weight into that relationship, not putting in the effort? Like, do you usually talk to them, beat around the bush about the conversation, or just tell them directly? Because I think that's kind of
Oh,
something that I've struggled with too, because sometimes I feel like when I'm giving in any type of relationship, it's not reciprocated, and I definitely don't know how to really navigate that and be like, hey, I feel like I'm giving like 80 and you're giving 20, you know?
yeah. So I do believe there is such a thing as mismatched efforts. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
like to call them. I don't think it necessarily always has to be 50-50. I do believe like at a certain length of a relationship, depending on how you are together, really it's like relative, right, to a person. It's
Mm-hmm.
to whoever it is and how they react. But I do think that sometimes you have to put in a little bit more, like you pulling more weight than the other person because
Mm-hmm.
I know they might be going through something a lot more difficult than you.
Right,
And
right.
as a partner, we want to do our best to like help them out. So we have to take that
Mm-hmm.
extra 10% per se. But
Right.
um, there's only so much that should be happening, though. You have to notice the signs. How often
Mm-hmm.
is it happening? One, are they appreciating it, or are they even just getting more stressed out?
Right.
Um, so that's one way I look at things is like it doesn't always have to be 50-50, but there's just moderation to that 80-20 or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think a lot of times too, friendship wise too, really any relationships, one person might feel like they're giving it their all, they're
Mm-hmm.
trying, right? But their definition of trying could look different to the other person.
Right. Right.
So that's where you kind of have to distinguish the difference, like what is trying to this person and what is not, because you could
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're giving it 110% effort and the
Mm-hmm.
other partner is still like, oh, I don't feel like you're trying hard enough or this,
Mm-hmm.
because we have a different definition, and that goes all the way back to communication, is
Right.
figuring out where you guys both stand as far as efforts
Mm-hmm.
go. But I do think that it's never a clear amount of effort together. Sometimes it fluctuates, and at perfect timing, yeah, you will finally find that effort, but
Mm-hmm.
it's rocky. It's not always like black and white when it comes to that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I myself have been like on both ends too,
Right.
being the person that tries and being the person that doesn't. um, and that always comes down to really like when you're fighting, that's when you see the efforts, right? So who's
Mm-hmm.
going to
Mm-hmm.
actually like walk away, who's going to
Mm-hmm.
stay? What does effort mean? Does walking away mean like they're not wanting to engage in a fight that could
Right.
potentially split you apart?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, there's a lot of things with the whole trying. I learned recently that my trying looked different from somebody else's trying.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
Mm-hmm.
felt like they were trying and I felt like they weren't. And I felt like
Right.
I was trying and they didn't feel like I
Yeah.
was. And at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, it just doesn't match. And yeah, you separate because of it.
Oh, okay. So speaking of separation, how have you dealt with heartbreak and breakups, and what were some of the signs that you knew, or were there any signs like, oh, I feel like it might be time for us to like split?
I did see signs. Um, but to be transparent, I was not the one to walk away. There was one time, but I've only been in two serious relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the first one, as great as it was, there were definitely signs, especially dating at such a young age and being together for
Mm-hmm.
such a long time.
Right.
You start to kind of just like ignore the signs because you're
Mm-hmm.
just so completely attached with the comfortability.
Right.
You
Right.
already know the person and all that. And then, the second one, it was short lived, but not that it wasn't anything. But I definitely didn't see the signs there in the beginning. I think that's when I wore like my love goggles, right? You're just
Yes.
so
Yes.
blinded.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're ignoring it, even though deep down you feel it. Those are also
Yep.
signs. So
Mm-hmm.
they may necessarily not look like anything, but they feel like something kind of
Mm-hmm.
signs.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, dealing with heartbreak, good grief. But the first one, I don't think I dealt with it all that well because it was something rather new. And it was with someone who I was in a relationship with for a really long time. I mean, 6 years
Mm-hmm.
is a long time.
Right.
And I think I just kind of was like, whoa, what do we do now? Like all I ever known was this.
Yep.
Um, and I was really sad for like a while. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it sucked. I was like, damn, like it makes you question what did
Yep.
I do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why am I not good enough? Those kinds of
Right.
things.
Right.
Um, and I also went through this phase where I was just like, no fucks given, like
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing. Now you're just kind of like, I'm gonna just do my thing. I dyed my
Yep.
hair. I like started
Yeah.
working out. So that
Mm-hmm.
was like how I dealt with that heartbreak. It was almost like this like change. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily say growth in that breakup. It was more change because it was like I was entering a different cycle of my life.
Right. Right.
And then the second one was definitely more about growth, um, like looking myself in the mirror, um, seeing all the things that were blinded to. I didn't see them, learning mistakes, and that heartbreak, that's more fresh. And dealing with that, uh, is a definitely energy consuming, to
Right.
say the least. I'm sure on his end too. It was like we were stuck in this little wonderland,
Mm-hmm.
and we just every time we would try to get out, like one of us would pull each other back in.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that one is definitely something I'm still trying to navigate my
Mm-hmm.
way through
Mm-hmm.
too, but learned a lot for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, I haven't been in any type of romantic relationship, but even when, you're just dating a guy for a little while, and then either that person ghosts you or it's kind of like a mutual thing, like this isn't really going anywhere, you still kind of have that internal battle with yourself where it's like, yeah, I want to be that person, I don't care, like it's their loss, but then also you have the other side, like why wasn't I good enough, like what was wrong with me that I wasn't worth their time, that they didn't want to put in to like grow this into whatever it could be. And that's like such a hard thing to navigate, because even if you're not like with the person, you still spend time with that person, you talk on the phone, like whatever, you share a lot of intimate details, and it's so hard to like let go of that. And I feel like sometimes it's like navigating whether or not you actually like the person or you just like the idea of them or like their
Yeah.
company. And that's something that I've been trying to learn and try to filter out, because sometimes you just don't know, because it just like kind of like goes together, like do I really miss this person, or is it just like because I have no one else to talk to, I miss this person.
Yeah, that definitely, that's normal. I think a lot of times too, we get obsessed with that fantasy and the
Yeah.
desire of an idea. Really,
Mm-hmm.
you start falling in love with the potential instead of the actual person. And I'm guilty of that. I'm a sucker for words, and charming people can definitely get to your head. It's that easy.
Right, right. I
Lots of
agree.
promises, lots of like futures, and then you get stuck on it. And so I think as it's just in human nature to start to freak out when things don't go the way they're planned. It doesn't align with the idea that you created in your head, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
created together. And it just makes you spiral down because you
Mm-hmm.
just are so stuck on it. And that's, I think, what even creates that bigger heartbreak. We create our own heartbreak through
Yeah,
expectations, really.
I
So
agree. I agree.
if we're always like, expecting it to be this outcome, and when it's not, we're like, oh my God,
Oh,
what do I
yeah.
do? Yeah.
Right,
So,
right, exactly. And it's so hard because like you have all these expectations and you think that person is definitely going to meet them, and then when they don't, you're like, okay, how do I mediate this? Like, how can I fix this to where like this person, what we're doing meets my expectations and we can go to like to the next step. And I think the worst part, I mean, there's always like a bunch of memes on it, but like creating fake scenarios too, I think plays such a
yeah.
big
Oh,
part, especially like when you're like, oh, I kind of like this person, I can see this going to like another level in a relationship, and then you're like, oh damn, like why was I being such a dumb bitch back then?
yeah, no, that's, I mean, we all do it. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
like one sane person who doesn't, because we're all just a little bit insane. Okay. We all
Yeah.
do fantasize. We all have this perception of how things are and versus reality. And it just yeah, it's just us. We're just very creative human beings, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. So going back with like exes, do
Hmm.
you think it's possible for exes to be friends?
Um, yeah, I do think it's possible. So I think there's a lot of things that factor in the possibility, quote unquote. I don't think some people can handle being friends, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. Um, it's just that we're all different, individual emotions, and I think it has to just be mutual understanding. Like I'm great friends with my first ex. We still talk like here and there.
Mm-hmm.
We have no bad blood. I don't hate him. He doesn't hate me. I don't have anything bad to say about him, and vice versa. Especially having dated for such a long time and building this foundation of not only just a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with him, but as a friend,
Right,
like,
right.
or family kind of thing. Like it definitely, you know, helps. That amount of time helps like create that friendship that could possibly bond you forever, even after you stop dating. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the um, common like misconceptions about friendships and like exes is that people think that if you can be friends with your ex, it means like you never loved them or you're still in love with
Mm-hmm.
them, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't think it just a black and white. I think there's that gray area as far as friendship goes, and I'm really happy that I can have a relationship with someone who I had an intimate relationship with and just
Right,
be civil.
right.
We
Mm-hmm.
respect each other, there's boundaries, and it's a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't want any more friends? And
Yeah, yeah. I agree.
we could all use friends in our
Yeah,
life.
yeah. I think in the beginning when I started dating and I was just having conversation with my friends, I never believed that exes could be friends. I was like, I don't even think they should because it's like you said, you have an intimate relationship and sometimes one party can either fall back in love with that person, after being friends,
Oh, okay.
and kind of just like navigating that. Like, how would you even navigate? Like, yeah, we spent all this time together, but now, like, you know, you're gonna come into my life just like a friend, as if kind of forgetting all that we've built. But then I think as I grew a little bit older, I realized that it's all a journey and kind of a process. Like if you're ready to be friends with your ex, you should definitely do it. But if you're not, if you think that either
Yeah.
you're probably gonna develop those feelings again, then maybe it's not the best idea. But it's everything is just kind of an experience and you kind of learn from that. And maybe with your first ex you can't be friends, but maybe with your second one, you guys have like a mutual understanding, mutual falling out, and then it was just a little bit easier to move on to the next step. Maybe you guys are better being friends than you were being in an actual relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I I think it's possible. I think it is really just like creating that boundary too.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always work out like for everybody. And some people never get there ever, and that's okay.
Right.
I think it
Mm-hmm.
also has a lot to do with like emotional maturity on
Yep.
both sides. It can't just be coming from one end, obviously. And just really truly being happy for someone, like I support whatever it is for him, and he does the same for me. We support each other because you're supposed to love this person. It doesn't mean you're in
Mm-hmm.
love with them, maybe,
Right.
but
Right.
it means that you care about them, and it's just a different kind of love that you share now,
Mm-hmm.
And I think truly that's just like an anomaly. I don't think it's a common thing. People did, I mentioned to a couple of people I've dated that I'm friends with my ex, and they're like, what, why? And I
Yeah.
even had this
Yeah.
one guy who was like, I just don't need anyone who has no purpose in my life. I was like, whoa, hold on, that's just like,
Okay.
I was like,
That's a
okay,
lot.
that's cold, that's blunt. See, and some people think that way, and they're gonna always think that way,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and that's sucks sometimes. Some people do want to be friends, and are capable of, but it's not being given on the other end. Like they just completely shut you out, and it
Mm-hmm.
happens. I'm not friends with my second ex, so it
Mm-hmm.
just really just depends on the person that you're dating
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
emotional maturity that you have together.
Right. Right. Because it's all about growth and
Yep,
turning
it's
a new chapter.
all about growth.
Growth. Yeah.
New
And
chapters, new books, even a new
yes.
sense.
Yes. So talking about growth, how do you think you grew as a individual, as a partner from your first relationship to your second one?
Wow, that's a deep one. um, so I think from the first relationship to the second, yeah, that's I can honestly say 2020, 2019 years of growth for me. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to grow. But that kind of growth is going to be um just at that time of my life, it was like a grand thing. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I'll take forever. My first relationship, I was immature. We were kids. We can't communicate like normal adults.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
would just yell at each other, and then not that didn't happen in a second,
Mm-hmm.
but when you kind of do a compare and contrast with your first and second, you see a specific quality that's
Mm-hmm.
repetitive in your behavior, and you kind
Mm-hmm.
of start to try to figure out why that's happening.
Right.
If
Right.
you really want to dissect it and why things are not working out in specific areas, it's a pattern. You'll see it. It's the same fight. You feel like you're hearing the same things, from
Mm-hmm.
the other person, from the first person, and then you start to kind of put two and two together. Like, okay, maybe it's not them, it's me, and this is something I need to fix, and I can't look for
Mm-hmm.
somebody else to fix. And that comes with dating, like seeing and admitting that you can make a mistake, admitting that you can
Mm-hmm.
make a mistake more than once. So if you were this way in the previous relationship and you're this way again in the second, recognizing that and being able to change that about yourself, that's the growing part, because you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing it's a pattern, it's a behavior that's obviously, you know, killing your relationships or creating fights that don't need to be there. And that is when
Mm-hmm.
you start to figure out how you're going to change it, how you're going to grow out of that specific trait. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really like the whole I am who I am kind of person,
Right.
that
Right.
quote of like,
Yep.
well, that's just how they are. Um, Maybe, but maybe nobody ever, actually told them like, hey, this
Yep.
behavior is not necessarily nice or
Yep.
correct. And the
Mm-hmm.
second relationship taught me that. And my first one never really pointed out that behavior. The second one, was. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I was starting to question myself, like, whoa, holy crap. But that's called growing. It's called
Mm-hmm.
growing. It's like being comfortable with the uncomfortable, like learning these things about yourself, admitting that you have toxic habits. We are
Right.
toxic to someone at one point,
Yep.
and you can be toxic to multiple people. But learning what that toxic trait is and growing out of it, that's where it begins, really, for me.
Um, I love that. I love that you brought that up about like, if you see a pattern and like comparing, not even just relationship, friendships, any type of intimate feelings, friends, relationship that you have, um, trying to dissect them and be like, wait, I'm the common thread in these, and like let me try to figure out why these didn't work. And since you are the common thread, you kind of have to like be look deep in and be like, okay, maybe this is why it didn't work out because I said something, I did something, and that's such an amazing opportunity that you had. And I'm so happy for you that you were able to really learn that about yourself and actually do it, because I feel like I've noticed so much just in school, work, friendships, that people really don't know how to take responsibility for their actions. And it's it's so much easier to blame someone else, but then when you have to, at such a young age, like we're in our 20s and we're already here taking so much responsibility in every aspect of our life. And it's just amazing that we're able to do that, because I don't know if in high school I would be like, yeah, it's totally my fault, I take 100% credit. Like, no, I'd be like,
Yeah.
no, it's definitely his or her fault. Like, they did this,
Yeah.
and this. So that's why I reacted like this. But as you grow
Hmm.
older, and I feel like it's kind of like when you start experiencing a lot of different things, different relationships, different friendships,
Yeah.
work environments, you kind of have to take a step backwards and be like, okay, let me scan everything and see how I could have
Yeah.
reacted differently and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's all about, perspective. And sometimes we're so caught up in our own perspective that we forget there's
Mm-hmm.
another perspective. And we may
Yep.
not be trying to walk in their shoes and seeing how they felt because we're too consumed in our own feelings, which is
Mm-hmm.
completely normal. I mean, who do we think about the most other than like us,
Right.
Us.
Right.
Hey, just
Right.
think about us. And so we forget that in a relationship, there's more than just us and our feelings.
Yep.
There's another
Mm-hmm.
person. And it's
Mm-hmm.
all about seeing it from their side. Like if that were to happen to me, how would have I reacted given the situation and all this
Mm-hmm.
thing? There's a lot to it. It does start with accountability and taking responsibility for your actions, but also not, you know, completely disregarding the negative actions that we're taking on the other side. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily always have to be a you did this, you did this. It's more like
Right.
a
Right.
I felt this way when it was done. It doesn't mean
Right.
it was
Right.
with any malicious intention, but I felt this way. And, ta-da. Not that I'm, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It really
Yeah,
just
yeah.
depends
No,
on who it is.
I definitely agree, because it is definitely all about accountability. And I think you definitely have to bring that in with any type of relationship that you have. It can't just be like, oh, in one relationship I'm like, okay, yeah, I definitely take responsibility for this, but in the next one you're like, no, it's not my fault at all. But I
Yeah.
also, what I've learned is not to over compensate the responsibility. Like, if something does go
Yeah.
wrong and you know that you didn't cause that, you shouldn't be apologizing for it, because
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
your
No.
fault. And I have a
Yeah.
really bad habit of doing that, because I'm like, it's so much easier like to keep the peace and whatnot. And then I just think about it 2 days later. I was like, that's not even like, I have no responsibility in that. Like, for sure, it was the other
Yeah.
person, but it's so much easier to just say sorry sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. You are so absolutely right. And looking back at our relationships with people, friendships or anything, you start to kind of realize like, hold on, just a second.
Yes.
Like you said, sometimes it is easier. And I guess that just is now where you take, best judgment. Like,
Hmm.
do I pick a fight? Is this worth
Yep.
it? Pick your
Yep.
battles kind of thing. Then that's just, tied to just the person itself and how they feel really at the moment. But
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
are times where I'm like, oh God, it's not worth the fight. Like,
Right.
you want I was wrong. Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like that all the time. You should
Yeah.
definitely know when to put your foot down because they have crossed the line or you are
Yep.
preventing them from crossing that line. And vice
Yep.
versa. Too.
Yep. You hit it right on the spot, dude. Like, right on the spot. So, one of my last questions, what do you think was the biggest challenge you overcame in your relationships? Were there
Oh
any
God.
specifics that you
Amy,
dealt with that you were like,
um, let's see. That's a really specific question.
yeah, it is.
Biggest challenges? I honestly would have to say it was more challenging as far as I guess trying to understand why things are happening. You know, I think that is really challenging for me. Is these fights happen and you're like, oh my god, why is this repeating? And then you're trying. I guess that's more of a self like realization. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking like the biggest challenge for myself is myself in the relationship because, you know, I don't think I was I don't think for both of them I was ready for the way it moved. The first
Mm-hmm.
one extremely young, thought we were like in love or whatever, just like all
Right,
the other
right.
high school couple movies, right, on the
Yeah.
TV. And we were, you know, but I think we were young. And so the challenge there was that there was no growth. And I think I knew I wasn't ready for some of the decisions that we were making together as
Mhm.
kids. And he felt the same, obviously. And then the second one, it was you know, I think that one is a lot of yeah, so that one I knew I wasn't ready to get in it.
Mhm.
I can still remember how I felt when, you know, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I think in my mind that my first reaction was like, oh crap, you know.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you know, I was kept composed because I did like him. I liked the guy.
Mhm.
I liked spending time with him. And there was a lot of time at that time to be spent together because you know
Mhm.
COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, that the first thing that I was thinking was like, oh my god, like what the heck? But I was like, yeah, like
Yeah.
I struggled. I struggled in the
Mhm.
relationship because I still had this side of me that wasn't ready, that was constantly just like focusing on other things. I don't know, trying to get some kind of validation from
Mhm.
everyone but him,
Mhm.
or giving my energy into the wrong areas of my
Right.
life.
Mhm.
And so I think I still should have given myself a little bit of time to kind of grow from the last one before jumping into the next one, especially when you
Mhm.
have that deep feeling. Like I said,
Mhm.
I liked him. I fell in love with him too, you know. So it was just following
Wow.
my feeling of love. That's where you put on those glasses because
Right,
you
right.
follow it.
Yep.
Even though there's this other part of it's like, hold on, like you still got growing to do.
Yeah.
So, but you grow in the relationship in a different way. I think in the relationship just expedited some of the growth that I needed to do on my own.
Mhm.
Um, they always say, what is that thing? Like you have like your three loves, right? Your first one is typically a young one, young couple, young
Um,
relationship, and you
mhm.
kind of break up because you don't, you know, match up anymore.
Right.
You're growing. And the second one is like where you really learn about who you are. And it's kind of toxic. It's a lot of drama. It's a lot of on and off and heartbreaks
Mhm.
and great. It's like trauma love. Like you're up and down all the time.
Right,
And
right.
the third one, which we have yet to find, hopefully only third one. That's supposed to be like the peaceful one,
Mhm.
the nice one, the calm, and it's the like the love. That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true. I am just a romantic person. I love love.
Yeah. Me
So
too.
you know.
I have another last question. Do you believe in soulmates?
Yes, actually, I do believe in soulmates. I don't believe in love at first sight, but I believe in
Okay.
soulmates. And I
Mhm.
think soulmates doesn't just strictly tie to romance or romantic partners. I think
Mhm.
soulmates could be friendships. I actually
I
really
agree.
like this question because, interestingly enough, I found a soulmate who I thought was supposed to be this kind of soulmate, but actually they were this kind of soulmate. So, what I
I love
thought was
that.
going to be a romantic start of like a soulmate search, it
Mhm.
was like a friendship. Um,
Oh,
I
yay.
think it's
I'm
like you
happy.
just both know. Yeah, you just both know. There's this kind of connection where it, you can just talk for days. Like I could pick up the
Yeah,
phone just to say hi, and we'd be on the phone for like 5 hours, and it's
I
like, oh
love
crap,
that.
you know this. But it's like a friendship soulmate. You
Yep.
share everything. I guess the way you would with your best friend, who is
Mhm.
also another kind of soulmate.
Soulmate.
You know,
Mhm.
like your best friend is someone that you share similar interests with, similar, you know, ideas. So soulmates, I think, Yeah, I think they exist. I think it's the kind of person that you can sit with and talk for hours without even trying to talk for hours. That's my idea of soulmate.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I don't think it's tied to just romantic relationships, definitely friendships. And there's so much navigating through that. And we're barely like in the beginning of our 20s and we have a
Oh
lot to
yeah.
go.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is that we're young, and not that negates the fact that like we aren't allowed to experience any relationship or whatever, but it's just
Hmm.
we're young. We have so much more time to experience
Yep.
so much more things.
Yep.
And one of the things that I had to realize was some people don't even find the love of their life till they're like 40.
Yep.
It's a different kind of soulmate. I think your love of
Hmm.
the life is that person that you spend forever with. And your
Yep.
soulmate could be temporary.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean you're not soulmates.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I definitely think that we are at the age of exploring
Yes.
lots of fun relationships, heartbreaks, pain,
Yep. Yep.
dating, right,
Yep.
Tinder, Bumble,
Yep.
unfortunately in this COVID
Yep.
loving world or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we can all like experience anything and everything by the end of the year. Hopefully the country is COVID free by then. Everyone get your
Yeah.
vaccines if you can, so we can all like go out and shit. So
Right. Find their soulmate at the club in the dance
yeah,
floor.
exactly.
That's funny.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's all I have for today. Thank you again, Raya, for educating
Yeah.
me and everyone here on relationships, on about growth, accountability, how to navigate it, because I feel like coming out of this, I have a much clearer vision of what I really want in life
Yeah,
and in
that's
relationships.
something you learn in the relationship. You
Yep.
find visions.
Yep.
This by no means I'm an expert. Obviously, I have two failed relationships, but these are epiphanies. One of the
Yep.
things that you learn from
Yep.
relationships and heartbreaks.
Yep.
So,
I
thanks
agree.
for having me, Amy. This was really fun.